Okay, so the big thing going forward here, right? We've got today and Wednesday, right? And then next week is finals week. We don't meet on Monday. We look at everybody's final portfolios on a week from Wednesday.
And that's on our Sketchfab, right?
What's that?
We put all our stuff on Sketchfab?
You put your models on Sketchfab, but everything gets collected, the Sketchfab included, in Behance, right? So we want to have two Behance pages with the following, right? 2 to 3 Sketchfab models on each Behance page, right? And so for the morning class, we went over a different flow. But for you guys, you can export them directly from where? How do you get something on the Sketchfab?
Oh, Substance.
Substance Painter, right? Have you guys tried that yet?
I have.
It worked?
I did it back in the Blender class you taught.
Right. But I mean, the point, anytime you're doing this like program to program handoff, like you've got to, I never count on that ever working, right? Those kind of things are really great when they work. But the problem is, like, Sketchfab changes all the time, and so does Substance Painter, right? And so, like, there's a very high chance that something doesn't work. So test that ASAP. In fact, I mean, I had you guys, for the homework that's due tomorrow, you're putting the stuff up on Sketchfab, right? So the things that you are most proud of that you made in both games, right? Modeling wise. And then the description of the game, we talked about this before, but do not mention AVC 200. No one knows what AVC 200 is, right? You can say I made this game for a class about animation and interactivity. That means something, right? People would understand what that means. You don't have to say it's made for a class. You could say this is a game I made and talk about the game, the description of the game. And then in terms of video, we want to have a couple video clips of the best parts of the game, right? You feel free to stage those, right? Like go in, record those in the editor, record those in the build, and cut out the best parts of things that you think look really good, right? Again, the point is not to, everything has its parts that didn't go so well, right? And everybody knows that when you're showcasing a thing, that you're obviously pointing out the parts that are better, right? And so this is that same situation here. And so we want these clips to be really just like, really exciting things that happen in the game. 5 to 7 second clips. And then a longer chunk of like gameplay. And so the clips, these are things that can be posted directly on Behance. They're short, right? And so Behance has a page. This is the one for the morning class. Let me come over here. Make another page. Right, so here's what we have by default, right? So our our very short video clips, that can be these, right? The video and audio clip, right? So if you just grab this and you grab the short bunch of video, yeah, so here's like a super short clip of some of the modeling. it's got to process it before we see it. Let's give it a second here. Let that go. We can have our text sections, right? This is where you would write the description of your game. You can have, if you upload an image, a single image, something like this, it spans the entire width. If you upload a photo grid, it asks you for an image, and you can select multiple images. For instance, this, and this, or let's say this, and these three. Right, so multiple images come in across like this, right? So one image, image grid, text description. It's still trying to process this video up here. I'm gonna click save. There we go. All right, so this is video. The Sketchfab you can add via the embed. And so if we go to my Sketchfab, so here's one of the ones I made for the spooky game. And embed, copy to clipboard, back to Behance, add an embed section, paste the embed code. Right, it's a bunch of stuff. You don't need to worry about the rest of it. If you say embed, boom. Now it's live there as a Sketchfab. Interactive. Right, so when someone's looking at your portfolio, they can see the whole thing. Make sense? Now, the other one would be the longer clip of gameplay, right? 1 or 2 minutes. For that one, it's going to take, Behance is, for these shorter clips, Behance is fine, but for longer clips, it's not really what Behance is designed for. And so, everybody please write this down. Longer gameplay, right? So that's going to be 1 to 2 minutes on YouTube. So on your school YouTube account, right? And we can embed that similarly, right? So if I were to use my channel as an example here of something short, sure, this. And come down here, share. No, is it down here? Oh, share, embed. That gives us the embed code here. Right, so all of this. Control C, back to Sketchfab, or back to Behance, embed, Control V, embed, boom. Now that's embedded as a YouTube video, right? And so it'll be much quicker to play back as a longer video clip there. Make sense? The we're going to, essentially, you guys are giving me the first draft of this stuff tomorrow, right? And then we have a week to polish it up. And you made 2 whole video games over the course of the semester, right? That's cool, right? But you need to let people know how you did this, and it needs to become something that you can put in your portfolio as part of your media portfolio. Where's the thing I was just looking at? Okay, yeah. And so let's look, we're doing it on Behance. If you already have, I'm okay with either Behance or if you already have an ArtStation account, that's fine as well. Do any of you have ArtStation? Okay. All right, so Behance is fine. Have you put up things on Behance before? Okay. But spend some time looking around for profiles that really speak to you. I found this one. This was posted on 80 Level last week. And the work is really good, right? This is all for this statue model that this person made. But what I want you to, like, the work is great, but the combination of things here in terms of, we have this really great beauty shot at the beginning, right? And then we come down here to this video that's like, 30, 40 seconds, where we get some more just sort of like awesome beauty shots plus starting to tell the story of making the thing, right? The references, the ideas. And so the other things I want you to include here, your hand-drawn sketches or however you sketched it out of your level designs, any sort of notes that you've done, right? So this is great, but as you keep scrolling, you'll see how really great this is, right? Different lighting conditions, right? Your pickup and whatever it is that you're collecting in the other game should definitely be something. Some more great beauty shots. And as we scroll down, this is what I really want to draw your attention to, right? We have some silhouettes of how they worked on the shape, and then some descriptions of why they made the design decisions they did. Some of their historical research, things about this time period, some more beauty shots here, some more research, and just sort of like supporting ideas, all things that they sort of looked up, researched, thought about while doing all of the design here. Right, so the project initially started as a master class for something, quickly grew into something else, right? So this game started as a project for AVC 100? No, this game started as a project for a class on animation and interactivity, right? Or you could just say a class, right? Again, please do not use AVC 200. No one knows what that means, right? The students barely know which one is which in terms of the classes. So yeah, this is really great. Like they are telling us the story of exactly how they started working on this. These are some breakdowns of some of the textures, some of the ideas about looking for more reference, some of the reading. Here's some of the flat renders. This is really cool. Some of the techniques, this is really above and beyond here in terms of what's working. So we didn't, some of you modeled some things in Substance Modeler, right? So clips like this, in fact, I'll expand the requirements. The short video clips, they can be clips, we'll say one of them, at least one of them should be from the game. And then you could also make clips of you in the editor, right? Like here I am like placing trees or light fixtures or something like that. Here I am building the environment, right? All of this really does two things. One, it shows that you thought about what you did. It shows that you have communication skills. And I can't emphasize that enough. The communication skills are huge, right? Especially people starting off. you're all, sort of junior level artists. No one is a worldwide star at this point. And so the people who are going to be hiring you are going to want somebody who can competently accomplish something and communicate with a boss about doing it, right? Not a lot of you are going to be in situations as soon as you leave here where you're your own boss, right? You're going to be working somewhere with somebody, right? And so being able to demonstrate that you really know how to communicate about what you're doing is really a big plus, especially at this point in your careers. Does it make sense? Right? So this kind of thing, right? Not just, like showing your sketchbook, if you sketched any of the things, the models that you worked on before, including all of that. This is some more of the work in Substance Modeler that this person was doing. The texturing breakdown, this is really great, right? Look at this. They put together a whole image in Photoshop where we've got sort of our Substance Painter layer breakdown, right? If you have one or two models that you thought was great, and you did something interesting texture-wise, and some of you did, that would be great, right? What else would be an interesting thing that we made and showing this part of it might be interesting, right? We have the Substance Painter layers. What else did we do in Unreal?
We animated some other stuff.
We made those animated textures, right? The glowing stuff, the stuff that glows at different, right? And that has the whole node tree, right? That whole thing. That would be great to include here in really telling the story of this. This is all in Substance Painter. A lot of like really cool Substance Painter details. Yeah, this is a really cool technique in general. What they're saying here is that they wanted when we've been doing randomness in Substance Painter, we go over and grab a noise or a grunge and bring it in. That's fine. Everyone and it looks good under most circumstances, but everyone does that, right? Who's using Substance Painter. And so those noises and grunges are not the be all and end all. And so you could take any kind of image and blur it and start to use it in the same kind of way, just to break up something else, right? Especially once it's blurred, it's no longer recognizable as this thing. It's just another sort of like another flavor of random noise. And that's what this person is saying that they did here in order to sort of generate a lot of these tiny details in there. Right? Here's a screen capture video of them in Substance Painter, right? So clicking on different things so that we can see our layer stack and some of the painting process.
I had also noticed one of the videos they showed they were using VR to model some of their...
Right. Yeah, so that they're using Substance Modeler, right, which works in VR. We didn't use the VR mode, but yeah, that you can use it in VR, which is cool. They're instancing some things. This is like a step-by-step on how they created the cracks in some of these textures. And that's just chapter 1, right? Clearly, this is like professional level work, but a lot of students think it is 90% quality of work, 10% marketing yourself. This is wrong. Okay. I like being good, right? I mean, I spend a lot of time doing this stuff. I practice. I teach you guys all this kind of thing, right? And so I'm not saying don't be good. You should be good at what you're doing, right? But this ratio, in terms of like working, if you want to do this as a job, is wrong. This more like 50-50. So, and, you know, I'm not here to like throw everybody under the bus, but there's have I seen instances of people in their careers where it was more like 10-90, where I thought they were not very good at all at actually doing the thing, but they marketed themselves so well that they were super successful? Yes, that is a thing, right? And, you know, like the bad news is, you know, like these people get work, these people do not, right? Artists usually super braggadocious and outgoing, or do they tend to be quieter?
Usually pretty quiet.
Yes, yeah, right? Especially the ones here in community college, right? I'm not saying there aren't artists with like a lot of outgoing personality, especially as you venture closer to other performing art situations. But a lot of artists are in this category where they just really don't want to do this 10% and they always put this off, which is why I have built it into the class now for years. And we really need to work on this. We need to get closer to this over here. Everybody with me there? Understand what I'm trying to communicate to you about the lay of the land here, right? I understand, right? Marketing yourself is tough for a lot of people to get used to. And
Well, capitalism is a pain.
right, yeah, like we're not going to change the game anytime soon. So the sooner, like if I had embraced that earlier in my career, it definitely would have been different, right? Just like everyone else, my tendency to promote myself at the level where it would result in probably more success, I'm reticent to do that, right? For all of the same reasons that you guys are, right? Self-consciousness, imposter syndrome, all the things. If I had forced myself to confront those things earlier in my career and simply learned that marketing yourself is just part of doing this kind of work, things would be, there definitely would have been different results. So my advice to you is to, even though it will be painful here at the beginning, try to embrace the idea of, you know, marketing yourself here, right? This is a big deal. It's what you want to do. And especially with as volatile as the whole industry is right now, it's a big thing that you can communicate with people, and you can communicate about what it is you do, how it is you do it, what you do well, all of those kind of things. The other part of this is that this is also all proof that you're a real artist and not someone just throwing up AI prompts all the time, right? Which is becoming more of a thing, you know, every passing day, right? There's, regardless of how those things are used, like that's, if all you have is an ArtStation profile where it's just, you know, a bunch of pictures that seem totally stylistically different, right? That's what everyone who's even remotely paying attention to this is suspicious of now at this point, right? Whereas if you have something like this where it's like, you know, this is clearly a person's work, they have done this, we see what they've been doing step by step by step by step by step, you know, it's, they've able to communicate about how they're doing it. It's great, right? Yeah, so if you're on ArtStation, I would definitely give her a follow. Really, I haven't looked at some of the other ones. Yeah, so a little less storytelling here, but regardless.
What if, like, you just feel anxious about posting stuff for professionalism?
What do you mean?
Like, even just thinking of the idea of, like, I mean, I'd love to but like for a professional use,
Uh huh.
I don't know. It's like I feel like I don't have enough content to really get started, or it's not good enough.
Or it depends on what the content holds. I mean, not everybody draws like safer work stuff.
That is true, but I don't do that.
I'm just giving the example.
I know. But
Yeah, the no one's going to hire you if they don't know about what you're doing. That's kind of it there, right? Like the posting it for media and posting it to be a professional, it's the same thing, right? Like in the end of the day, other people are finding out about it. You're making connections with those people. Those people have jobs. Those people hire other people. So it's really, everyone has to start somewhere. You guys are just starting off. I mean, even if you post all of this stuff and tear it down over the summer, you went through the process of building a competent portfolio. So that will matter the next time around. I'm saying don't do that. That's not a great idea. But in terms of like doing it all and then pulling it down, right? Has my portfolio evolved? Like, have I gotten rid of older projects where I'm like, that doesn't really represent what I do anymore? Yeah. Over a course of years, right? You guys are just starting off, right? Like some things I did 15 years ago are not stuff that's currently on my resume. So that stuff evolves in a much longer game. You guys are right at the beginning. So you just spent I know how this class works in other schools. No one else does this in the way that they end up making 2 video games over the course of a semester, right? And so you should feel proud of that. It's a significant accomplishment, right? We don't even have a whole lot of other classes where we're doing that in the video game program, right? Yeah, which is a whole separate issue. But this, you guys made things that look compelling, and they're actual games, right? This is also, some other people teach this class in a way that like, you design a bunch of stuff as if it were going to go in a game, right? Which to me just feels super unrewarding, where it's like,
I did take one of the game development classes where he showed us different stuff and we made them.
And then did that become a game at the end?
It was like test demos of like what this code does and how it looks. Like
Yeah,
it's bits and pieces.
right. Yeah, but Marissa, if you want people to hire you, they need to know about what you're doing, right? So like it's just the way this goes. It's not as you poke around ArtStation, as you poke around Behance, like on the front page, yeah, Adobe throws up all the stuff that looks really, really, really great, right? But if you spend any time looking around at other people, or if you look specifically, search junior level artist, right? That's the hierarchy. Junior level artist, senior level artist, art director, whatever, right? There's a lot of other junior level portfolios out there that, will look good, competent, but you're like, yeah, it's not, the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's not amazing, right? Everyone has to start somewhere.
So just one step at a time.
Yeah. 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 You can't wait to, for some unknown time in the future where you pass, like, who's going to let you know? Right? You have to start somewhere. And yeah, I mean, maybe if you say, like, I'm a junior level game artist starting off, here's some of my work, like that at least gives it that caveat. But yeah, posting, like, especially when you don't have a job, the point is to get a job, right? And that's when you need to be even more aggressive about the whole process of marketing yourself and making connections and all those types of things.
Okay. So despite so it wouldn't matter what website you use to get yourself out there, whether it be a less known website, a really popular website, or maybe even your own online website portfolio, as long as you get something out there. And like,
I mean, that stuff matters, right? Right. What I'm worried about you guys doing, like Behance is a reasonable place, right? It's semi-permanent, where like it'll be, you can send everybody a link to your Behance page, and then that's it, right? Like that's a place that you know everything. Like that's the other reason we're doing it this way, right? The YouTube video, the Sketchfab upload, the clips, all of that is right there. You don't need to go find the files to respond to an email to someone where they're like, hey, can I see some of your work? All you need to do is send them your Behance page, right? And it's all right there, and they can look at all of it. That's the other point here, right? Because if it's all just a bunch of Blender files and Unreal projects, that's not something you can really share with people, right? It's all working files. It's a whole thing to get it to look at any of it. So, yeah, but I mean, in terms of like what's more effective, like Behance is reasonable. Like Behance, ArtStation, these are some of the main places. This is all in flux constantly, right? So, Instagram was much bigger 7 years ago for this than it is now, kind of. Like all that stuff's going to constantly change, and it's up to you to sort of like at least somewhat pay attention to it throughout your career in terms of what, where you think more people might see it. But have I ever heard of anyone who's in a hiring position being like, oh, we hired this person over that person because their portfolio was on Instagram and not Behance, or their thing was on ArtStation and not Instagram? No, I've never directly heard of that happening, and I've never heard anyone talk about anyone else saying that was happening, right? It's just sort of like everyone knows that this stuff is totally fractured now. It's in a bunch of different places. Some places have one kind of community, some places have another kind of community. In terms of like it's all about looking at the work, right? If they look, regardless of wherever it is, where are you going to have the most control over it? Your own webpage, okay? But that's kind of a whole other thing, right? Like my webpage is on WordPress, so it's a whole other like month worth of talking about stuff in terms of like, you got to set up your WordPress portfolio and have a theme and I'll do all this other stuff. Whereas Behance, it's like ready to go, right? It's like there, it's pretty obvious. I want a video clip. I want some images, right? It's pretty simple. And at the end of the day, the format, especially on the web, is also not super critical, right? It's like when the students get too experimental with the typography, and I tell everybody, stop doing weird things with the type. Let you're all artists and image makers, essentially, and let the images do the talking there.
okay. So, like, it really doesn't matter what kind of, well, I mean.
Everything matters, but we're going to use Behance for now, right? I haven't seen anyone not get hired because of those kind of things. Where are you going to get the most views? Where are you going to get the most back and forth? Like that is all shifting, and it depends on what kind of industry it is you're looking to get into, right? There's probably more game texture people on ArtStation than there are on LinkedIn, but there's way more game programmers on LinkedIn than there are on ArtStation, right? So it just depends there, right? But part of it is, LinkedIn's another one paying attention to all this that's gained more momentum. It's like a place people post stuff now, partially because the other places have become kind of, trending in one direction or another direction. So,
Question, if you wanted to get a job in the game industry, do grades matter? Does your GPA matter at all?
no, for any sort of art-based anything, besides teaching, no one has ever asked for my transcripts. Ever, right? Everyone is this is why we spend all the time in all of the classes making things that go into the portfolio.
Experience over grades.
Right. Right. Yeah. The way projects work is there's a project, someone hires you to do something, you do it, they give you some corrections, and you improve it. Does that sound familiar? It's what we've been doing all semester, right? I told you to do a thing, right? I am your art director, right? That's another reason I run the class like this, right? A lot of students think that school is about just sort of like doing the assignment to get it done. No real art situation with a client or a boss works like that, right? It's like, do this, and that is step one. And then there's the long process of like, okay, now we need to change this, this, and this. Now improve that, change this. Exactly what we've been doing all semester, right? You guys do stuff. I'm like, great, great, great. No, no, no. Yes, no. What about this, right? That's how this works. That's how it works for everything, right? Right. We've been doing that process all semester long. Right. So I'm functioning as the art director in that situation. I'm trying to make everyone's work as good as it can be for your portfolios, right?
So grading, it's more the experience than grading.
It's totally the experience, right? Yeah. For any sort of creative field.
What about for coding? I'm not sure.
Yeah, coding, the things might be slightly more complicated there. There's more of a paradigm. I've never been, I'm coding adjacent, right? Like, I know way more than you guys do, but like, I didn't go to school for computer engineering at any point, right? I've just sort of like done it as my side thing for 15 years. And so like, could I do it like as a starting off thing now? Yeah, probably. But like, there's a whole bunch of other issues there. Sometimes there's tests for coding. They use that to try and separate people from one another. Whereas that, like the portfolio is really the thing for art jobs. Whereas, have you heard about LEET code tests?
That's a new one for me.
Yeah, like, so that's, the bigger companies, Google's, Meta's, that kind of thing.
I know they have you like test your knowledge, like write a code on a whiteboard or like demonstrate that you know what you know.
Yeah, with a test. Yeah. So go to the New York Times and search for Columbia coding test. Like in the past 2 months, there's a gentleman at Columbia who coded a way to cheat on the coding tests and got kicked out of Columbia, but immediately got multi-million dollars in funding for a startup for a company to do what he had just gotten kicked out of Columbia for. So it's a pretty volatile environment in that way. Because coding, like the AI art is something that's disrupting our jobs and our future. AI coding, probably more so, right? Because it's...
AI so far it's mostly generated.
Well, for art stuff, yeah, but you can generate code
Right.
really well now. Like, it's incredible how good it is at doing that. Anyways, that's an issue that everyone's going to need to figure out. I don't have any direct answers there. It's literally like brand new, right? Like, I remember installing or going over ChatGPT with my brother-in-law 3 years ago and like being amazed at how good it is. And now it's, like a totally different animal. So anyways, yeah. So two Behance pages, right?
Something has pages.
Yeah.
So we just need to do 2 Behance pages.
Yeah, the requirements are on the assignment there, right? So on the Behance pages, we want to have the Sketchfab links. We want to have the gameplay video. We want to have the short video clips. Consider some of those video clips being you working, right? Just like we saw, right? You maybe turning on and off anchor points in, right? Let's make a list of possible things here, right? What could our other show your work clips? Connecting the nodes in the Unreal animated material graph.
Demonstrating the nodes, like how you showed us how you can pull up the nodes and you can watch them like work.
Oh yeah, like seeing their lines, things animated on lines. Yeah, that's pretty cool. You could do that. In Substance Painter, right? When I've showed Substance Painter to like people who are art savvy but not digital art savvy, right? The thing that's most incredible to them is like seeing the layer buildup, right? That like you've got this base metal, and when you see that by yourself, you're like, yeah, all right. But then you start to see like, well, here's this layer of grunge, here's this layer of inner dirt, here's this layer of this thing on top, and like that would be another great one. Sequentially, turning on the layers of a model in Substance Painter, enabling the anchor points in Substance Painter would be another one, right? These are all different ideas. In Unity or Unreal, building, world building, placing obstacles, populating collectibles, right? All those kind of things. Showing that you understand the whole process here, right? Yeah, like it's hard to go back and show this, but maybe in some sections, like in Blender, depending on what you have, beveling and edge, turning on and off modifiers, right? To say, like, part of the way I made this tree trunk was I had this really rough topology, and then I added a subdivision surface, and then I solidified it or something, right? And so you could have the original topology, click on the subdivision surface, enable that so you can see how it smooths out, click on the next one, see how that, right? So that would be a great couple seconds of showing your work there in terms of like how, and that demonstrates a lot, right? You understand how these modifiers work in Blender, what's going on there, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Right? So all these are, possible ideas here.
Okay, so I do understand the assignment now, because I'll admit I was a little confused about the instructions, because it just kind of seemed like for me, like just to post the video of everything you have so far and then just slap it in there. Other than,
No,
I
like we
was-
don't want to, there's no slapping, right? All thoughtful presentation.
Okay.
No slapping. No slap it a slap.
Okay.
Thoughtful, artistic, nuanced, complex, riveting presentation. Right? The one I just showed you, right? As we were scrolling through that, you're like, wow, this looks really good. Wow, this is telling me a lot. Wow, this person really thought about how to present their work, right? That's what you want people to think when they see your thing, right? Right? Because you've done a lot of work. Everybody's done a lot of work. Once again, there are no other classes as of this time at Maricopa County Community Colleges where the students make 2 video games over the course of 1 semester, right?
Right.
And you guys have all made it here to the end of the semester. Congratulations. Look around. We all didn't make it, right? There's some fewer people here now than there were at the very beginning, right? But that's typical for doing this kind of work. When you talk about like building worlds for video games, if you talk to your friends about that, you're like, would you be into doing that? A lot of people answer that question, yeah, that sounds cool. And then like they immediately engage with the idea of like the reality of learning to do that, and it is prohibitive, right? You need to think about it. You need to consider it. You need to work at it. And so it's not for everybody, right? Which is fine. This is not math and English class, right? You don't have, you kind of have to know those things, right? Whereas over here, not everyone needs to be a video game designer, right?
I learned too late that when coding, there is a reason why math. I was always told, you need to know math to do coding. I'm like, when am I going to need it? Because like I'm typing up stuff and I'm like, I don't see it. And then I'm told, yeah, you use the math formulas in the code. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, it's talking through math.
yeah, to somewhat, yeah.
A little, yeah.
I mean, I try to downplay the amount of math in computer coding at our level, right? Everyone is in this class. Like, again, I'm engaged with the computer as an artist, right? And as an artist, I wanted the computer to do a whole bunch of stuff. So I learned just enough to like make that happen, okay? I'm not a math genius, right?
I tend to bite more than I can chew.
But really coding is just about clear instructions, right? Are those instructions mathematical proportions and relationships? Occasionally, but most of the time at the way we're engaging with the computer, it's just, can I clearly think of the order in which these things need to happen, right? The player enters the trigger zone. Then we increment the player's score. Then we destroy the other thing after we've played the sound, right? And we have to do it in that order so that we get the correct score. We don't want to increment the score after we destroy the thing, because once we destroyed the thing, there's nothing to increment the score, right? There's really no, incrementing the score is like adding one. It's not a heavy math ask, right? We were all there in second grade. It's really just the clarity of the sequence of events, right? It's just very, very, very clear thinking about organized orders of operations, right? Like is there a lot of heavy lifting in the code making the light look correct in the Unreal environment? Yeah. Do I need to like engage with that on a daily basis? No, right? Much more working at the level of like just essentially dynamically turning things on and off as the game goes through different states, right? So, yeah, because the math thing tends to be a real source of anxiety for all the students I get, right? The more art-minded students who kind of wanted to come here so that they didn't have to take any more math classes, right? But again, like, I think that's paid off. I mean, you tell me. I mean, I told you at the beginning of the semester we would have to interact with code, right? But I haven't exactly asked you to like write a bunch of code from scratch, right? Or do a bunch of like crazy math, right? But I mean, a bunch of like pretty simple things like incrementing a score, keeping track of how many things are here, basic coordinate kind of stuff, right? If this X value is higher, is it to the left or to the right of this thing? That kind of stuff. And I think you do need to know that sort of, just very basic stuff as, an artist doing this kind of thing.
Because I was going to say, I wanted to learn both the kind of back end and front end of video games, from the art to coding your art to talk across the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. It's going to be a long trip. Like once you're done with your community college degree, you will have taken your first step in that direction, right? But the good news is the tools are amazing and they're getting better all the time, right? When I started this job 10 years ago, we didn't have a class where we made 2 video games over the course of the semester, right? The tools have gotten that much more accessible. Like Unity and Unreal more or less existed at the time, but they're much, for all the complaining I do about the existence and non-existence of checkboxes, the tools are way better, incredibly better than they were 10 years ago. So we're able to do way, way, way more, which is really interesting, right? And I think it's necessary right? Going forward. I think in order to get noticed, the scale, you have to start thinking differently about the scale of your ideas, right? Will there be people who make their livings as people who make individual static images, one painting, a single painting, a single etching, a single drawing?
There was this one book writer who published one book and made millions. It was like, yep, that's it.
Yeah, that's really like hitting the lottery, right? So going forward in the future, like just thinking about your ideas, I have this idea, just changing the scope of your ideas, right? I mean, I hope that's what everyone takes away from the class. I mean, none of you came into this class at the beginning of the semester thinking, I'm a person who can make 2 video games in the next 4 months. And you all did, right? So there's that, right? The scope of what is possible for you is hopefully different now than it was then, right? Where I'm not sure how everyone identified as an artist, but when I asked you all to post examples of your work at the beginning of the semester, no one posted a previous video game that they had made, right? In completion. There are a lot of sketches, individual drawings of anime characters, stuff like that. And my opinion to you is that it looks like in the future, people who have ideas and concepts that are of a different scope, not just single images, I think are going to be able to be more successful.
I need to start learning to define just sketches, because whenever I sketch something digitally,
Uh-huh.
it turns into like a finalized image.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everybody going through the process over and over again is the only way you learn, right? In fact, like the whole school setup, I'm not really sure that I teach anything. Like I'm not even 100% on board to the idea of education. I try to just set up an environment where people learn things through experiencing and trying to build something. The idea that like there's a bunch of stuff in my head and then something I do somehow gets it into your head seems like a pretty fraught idea in my opinion. And so like the course is really about setting up an environment where, I've clearly tried to smooth some things over for you, right? But trying to set up a situation where you're questioning and learning on your own. Because that's the other part, right? Having some bigger ideas, being able to implement on those ideas by trying something out, getting it to a point, showing it to someone, getting some feedback, going through that process again. That's the important part, right? That's why we did it every week, right? That will continue. I'm 100% sure, right? That process. Will you be using the same tools to do that 10 years from now? Almost certainly not, right? And so being able to learn quickly is also a super important tool. That's why at points throughout the semester, we're going through a lot of stuff. Would we know? I mean, that's on purpose, right? We learn one game engine and we learn another one. And being able to learn how the new thing is like the thing you already know, that's super important. Super important. It's called generalizing your knowledge, right? That's why I'm able to keep up with all this stuff. It's like I have some sort of base of knowledge and just sort of expanding it. I'm able to leverage everything I already know in the stuff that I'm learning all the time. And
how are you able to find what you're looking for?
yeah, I mean, I'm really particular about the language. I'm really good at evaluating content, right? So there's that. for the most part, the things I've asked you to do were things that I showed you directly on YouTube, right? But as everyone knows, there's a ton more content on YouTube, right? So the good news is there's a ton of content on YouTube. The bad news is there's a ton of content on YouTube,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Tutorial hell.
Yeah, exactly. And so you tell me, how do you decide what's good and what's not? Isla, how do you make a decision about that?
I usually get different opinions, I get more information, and kind of decide for myself based off the information I get. That's usually what I do.
Yeah, I mean, you want to have multiple sources, right? And then you're getting that. I mean, but let's be a little bit more specific, just in terms of like looking up stuff about Blender on YouTube. How, right? I mean, because I use the follow button strategically, right? Like if I follow somebody, it's because I thought the information was good in terms of like it was accurate, like they said the thing that works. But then, and additionally, they said why they were doing this thing, right? Because at the end of the day, knowing which button to click on, it doesn't do anything for you conceptually, right? And those days of knowing the buttons are numbered, right? Like this is the other AI front that hopefully makes more progress soon. Is like, what if you didn't have to know where the buttons were in Unity? You could just talk to it. Where you're like, hey, Unity, build my game. And it just did it, right? And you knew what building a game was, right? And you do now, right? That's when you turn it into an application. That's coming, right? It's already here to some extent. There's a bunch of demos of people doing this in Unity. I've seen some of it in Unreal. All of the designers know this, right? Like it's the next step beyond computer coding, right? Because it's here with computer coding, right? If you can describe it in regular language, what you want, the AI can, for the most part, kind of turn it into functioning code, right? And so all of this knowing where to click. And so I'm looking for content that really talks about what's going on besides which button, right? I don't,
Like what tools can be used to do this, and this?
why are they doing this? Not only like I bevel this edge to get a reflection here, the next step, why do I want reflections on the edges of my objects? You guys answer that. Why? Why do you want that on the edge of your object? What does it do visually, artistically?
It gives it more realism.
Right, that's how things look in the real world, right? Because in CG, they're too sharp, right? They're sharp in a way that is not possible in the real world, right? We've talked about this. There's a reason why I talked about that all semester long, right? For that very, very specific reason, right? As to why. That's the piece of information going forward. When you're modeling 15 years from now and whatever the next thing is after Blender, right? That's not going to change. In order to make things look realistic, they need to have some kind of beveled edge. It's probably not the same kind of tool that's going to be doing it, but knowing that that's what you need is the important thing. And so like I don't follow a lot of like YouTube shorts, right? The whole idea that all of that kind of content about Blender and about 3D modeling, where it's like I jammed this whole idea into 60 seconds, never seems to answer any of those questions for me, right? So.
For me, I usually use them to get, like, if I need something quick and I don't want to watch a 5-minute tutorial on to do this one small thing I need, I usually go to YouTube Shorts to, like, just get what I need quickly. If I wanted to full-on learn something, I could watch a video.
Yeah, I would encourage you to make your media diet, way more long form, less short form, right?
Those
Especially.
people have ADHD.
Right, so being able to, but it's a skill you can develop, right? Regardless of wherever you're starting, right? And so there's been, because that's the other issue when you're evaluating content. There's the title of the video, right? And then there's what's actually being said in there. And the longer the content is, I try to have a summary in each assignment I give you, like we did this, this, and this. But I talked for a long time, like 2 hours, right? But I tried to make it, again, I'm trying to explain why I'm doing all the things I'm doing in the instance that I'm doing them, right? For that reason. Because just knowing where the buttons are is not going to be enough for very long, right? You have to be the person with the ideas, and then the ideas about how to strategically implement those ideas. So when you're putting your portfolio here, you want to show people that you're thinking on that level, right? When you write about your game and when you write your descriptions of your clips, use that kind of language. Don't be like, I clicked on the anchor point, then I clicked on this, then I clicked on that, right? Instead, be like, I used anchor points in Substance Painter to add grunge to height details that I had added in the height map, right? I use the height map because it's more computationally effective and lightweight than modeling those tiny details in the actual topology, right? All of those, speaking about it with that kind of specificity, right? You had an artistic idea and then you technically implemented it, right? This is all, if you want to be doing any sort of interactive thing, it's going to be on a computer. It's got to be strategically implemented.
So basically, step by step, plan it out.
Yeah, I mean, you want to have a plan, right? Absolutely.
But like,
But I mean, be prepared for the plan to change, right?
right.
Right. I mean, you've seen me run into walls. That's why I keep all that stuff in the video, right? I try to hope that some of it is something you guys can learn from in terms of like, because it's not like you're not going to run into those walls. Like everybody hits them. Sometimes it's a lot of times it's just poor interface design where, whatever. And some of them are unavoidable. But if you take a step back and you're like, okay, well, I did this, this, and this, and then that happened. What if I did this, this, and this? Does that happen or not? So you kind of need to become like a miniature scientist in all those situations, right? Okay, well, if I keep this the same and change this and this, do I get the same result? Yes. Or no. Okay, then that means I had to do this, this, and this, right? So that's how I try to approach all those things. So yeah, I try to have a plan, but then obviously be flexible enough to adjust when that plan happens, right? Because there's adjusting technically, and there's also adjusting artistically, right? There's been plenty of instances where like, oh man, I really want to do this. And then when it comes down to it, it becomes a total technical hassle for whatever reason. And then I have to sit back and ask myself, wait a minute, was it even worth it? Why am I even doing this, right? And it's like, well, I wanted this thing to be purple. And like, well, actually, it would be, if it were blue, that would be technically easy. And is there any technical reason, is there any artistic reason I wanted it to be purple? No, right? Like, as it turns out, that's actually not critical to whatever it is I'm trying to say. It's okay if it's blue. So the name I use for that, and I probably mentioned this previously, this is a famous sort of music making idea. Oblique strategies, right? Where, you've got some sort of idea that you're working on, you come up against a wall here, and you just keep trying to solve it until you bust through the wall here, right? The only problem is sometimes the wall is impenetrable, right? And you can't make it to the other side by solving what this problem is. And so you need to move obliquely to go around said wall, right? What that means is changes depending on the situation, but a lot of times that's possible. The other, less fancy word for doing this is hack, right? it has that negative connotation, but it's, solving a problem in an unorthodox way. Sometimes it's necessary because you waited too long and now you don't have time to do it a different way. Sometimes it's necessary because the new version of the program is broken. Sometimes it's necessary because, no one got me the files in time or whatever, right?
It's not cheating if it's just simply problem solving.
Right. It's, unorthodox problem solving, a hack, right? We had to do it in just the last class, right? Just sort of combining Mixamo animations. It was this whole thing. And then in Blender, the base layer for some reason acted differently. And so,
I was actually planning on making my own model, but then I'm like, realistically, I'm not gonna have enough time to really make it.
yeah, that's a tough one, right? Especially when you're starting off, right? Do students, but far and away, the tendency for students is to bite off way more than they can chew, right? Where you're like, I'm going to do all this stuff. And then by the end of the day, you're like, ugh. Everyone kind of does that, right? I've gotten slightly better at it, but still, there's been plenty of projects where it came time at the end of the day, and I was like, well, this is about 40% of what I originally envisioned. But I don't advertise that, right? Again, the marketing part of it. Here it is. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in meetings where, it's not like I misrepresented it. I'm just sort of like, here's what it is now. And the thing that I really wanted to do that didn't happen for whatever reason didn't even occur to the people I was presenting it to. Like the thing that I was just totally stressing over. They didn't even notice was a thing, right? Like say, I couldn't get the motion blur to work on this, and I wasn't happy with the way it was crunchy or something like that, and spent this whole time trying to troubleshoot the motion blur. And then you go to show it to someone, and you're like, you know what? I really like that it doesn't have motion blur. Like, great.
Also, do you remember how we made the forks?
Yeah.
Cause I actually have now turned the what's before like 4-class project on Blender into just something for myself. And I'm trying to make hands.
Yeah, so the same thing there. The big part is that branching topology.
Right. That's what it's called, that's what.
Right here.
Yes, that.
All right, so here's how you go from 1, 2, 3 subdivisions to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So I'd be making that pattern right there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because you need 5 fingers. Right, let's just check out a couple other Behance pages here. So again, you want the first thing to really be really great image that represents the game, right? And so our title scene that we worked on in the first game, right? That's probably a good candidate here because we worked on shallow depth of field. You've got the title there in the game. Here we've got a video clip. That's super cute. Image. Oh, this is really cool. Is this? I'd be interested to know, is this a Behance thing? It must be. Let's see. I didn't know that was possible. Let's see if we can find that on anybody else's page. So I went on Behance here. I looked for Blender. Bunch of actual Adobe stock images of Blender. Clearly they haven't updated their algorithm. So some of these shorter clips, no, see these are auto playing here.
Mm-hmm.
So these are in GIF format.
I'm sorry, why does that look like Sugar Rush?
Kinda does.
Instead of as kart racing, something, something. Trying to see if anybody else has the
God, it does.
that slider. Whether that was a
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that guy.
okay. So here's what we're not looking for, right? One image of a Autobot tape player. Not a great representation of work, right? In terms of, like it looks fine, but all the kind of stuff that we're talking about. Telling the story of the work. Different views, different lighting. Topology, right? And so these topology kind of images, I'm having the people in 185 do that, but having the Sketchfab embeds allows for that, right? Because when you have it in Sketchfab, everybody can come over here and go and look at the underlying topology of what is there, right? Which is why I think Sketchfab is so great at being able to show your work online, right? Also check out the UVs. Let's see if we can find anything else here. Right, so here's like an identity for the game. This is a little bit of like what I was referring to before, like designing a lot of things for a game without actually implementing it in the game. Some run cycle. Yeah, it's very,
I've seen it on Steam too.
very Hollow Knight inspired.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely inspired.
This is more of an educational man rope. So take some time to look around. This is a real game. I didn't play this, but right, I'm going to post the link to the really great one from ArtStation, from the person who works for Substance, from Substance. Yeah. Make sense? Let's just look real quick at those clips that play on their own. For instance, right, let's look at how we would do that. You can do that pretty easy in Media Encoder. So, for instance, let's grab some of the stuff that you guys sent for your games from the last one. So here, okay, sorry, Isabella, I didn't have the chat up. It's not appearing in OBS for some reason. Where is registration in the president making the materials in Unreal, connecting nodes? Okay, good. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Isabella, for sure. Okay, so here we go. Download. Okay, so Madison, she's doing the great game with the Cat Cafe, right? And so I'm going to go to Media Encoder, and right where there's two options for the short clips, short video clips. One, upload an MP4 as video. Two, upload a GIF as picture. So, what's the difference? This is going to be a video, and the person will have to press play to watch it. This will autoplay, like the one, right? The one where I was scrolling through and they're just playing, right? And so, for instance, we can do that directly in Media Encoder. If I come in and grab, like, here's a bunch of Madison's gameplay, like so. And then I come over here to GIF settings. I'm in Media Encoder right now. And I'm going to go to match source as the default. And so I'll drag that over like so. And then I will delete the one that was already there. There we go. Yes. And then we need to go to the animated GIF preset and make some changes. Okay. So now the GIF should be short. The GIF should be short. The GIF is a clip, right? You don't upload a 2-minute GIF. That's not a thing, right? And so here we can scrub through to find, like, maybe right here. And so I can set the in point, set the out point here. And can you zoom in on this timeline? You can expand it. That probably helps. And so we want to get this down to like a very short amount of time. Does it tell us the total amount of time there? Where would it tell us the total amount of time? Oh yeah, over here, 2 seconds, maybe 3 or 4 seconds for a GIF. There we go. So it would just be that clip there, right? Now, under size here, we want to keep the relationship, but so keep it locked, but I'm going to make the top number 640, and so it'll be smaller, right? So this, I wouldn't use a GIF as one of the big slots, right? But I could use it on smaller slots, right? Which is what they did in that other portfolio that we just saw. 640 frame rate. Yeah, that's probably okay. Transparency none. And it doesn't need any audio. I think the audio is automatically scrubbed. Okay, and then here, let's go ahead and just put it on the desktop for now. As GIF, save, and okay. And now I can export it. There it goes. Okay, and then back in Behance, it would look like this. Come back over here. Drafts. Oh, a lot of draft projects. Edit project. Let's come over here to photo grid. Image. Go to my desktop. And I'll get that GIF and just 2 other random images and say open and let those go. And now I have this, right? And so this, let's go save as draft. Right, and so now I have this in my portfolio, right? So this super short clip here is playing automatically, right?
Cat.
Who is cat?
So I think it's a cool thing, right? You definitely, you know, like having the bigger videos is cool too, to see the detail, but maybe doing a bunch of your smaller moments like this clip, right? So just, you know, pretty easy. Once you've got a big chunk of gameplay, you can pull those clips out of it, right? Your particle explosions, those kind of things, right? Those are cool things to show off in that kind of environment. And so you can take the MP4 and cut it down into a GIF, and then the GIF has to get uploaded. But remember, the advantage there, plays automatically. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. All right, so on Wednesday, we will look at everybody's first draft of their Behance portfolios. Then the following Wednesday is our final day, right? Everybody, let's just all get on the same page here. Those of you who can come to school that day, please, it's the last day. Our last day is, boom, boom, there we go. Wednesday, May 7th at 4. Okay. There won't be school on Monday, and you'll be able to turn everything in up until that night.
And we don't meet on May 5th?
Right. Belle, she'll send out confirmation, but I think she'll be here that day if you want to come in for help and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, that's finals week, right? And so we used to always meet on the Monday, but it's been working out better the last couple semesters. I give everybody a little extra time. Do you have any other finals? It seems like there's so few final tests anymore. Like when I was in college, it was like it was rough.
In communication, we have the option to take the final
What?
points. Yeah.
Is it a treasure hunt?
No, it's like doing a piece of paper exam.
Oh,
A test,
Yeah, a test, pretty much.
also known as a piece of paper exam.
Yes.
But it's optional.
Yeah.
So like if you want to improve your grade, you can take the final.
I need to take that final.
Okay. Do you have any finals?
I have a final for chemistry.
Okay. Like just straight up written test
Yeah.
on finals week or on the last day of finals week. Okay. Yeah. Everything used to be that way. Cool. Sound good? All right. Everybody understand better what we're doing with the portfolio pages here? Okay. All right. So you did a bunch of work. Now you just really need to show that to everybody and show everybody that you can talk and describe what you did eloquently. Sound good? Okay, great. We're done. Let me just make sure Isabella doesn't have any questions. Isabella says, I'm glad I stuck through it. Class was really fun. Yeah, I mean, again, we make 2 video games, right? It's not like